There's something inside you that terrifies you, not because it's evil, but because it's true. You buried it beneath morality, beneath comfort, beneath everything they said would make you good. But it's still there, like a whisper in the dark, a crack in the mirror of your mind. And when the world goes quiet, you feel it. Nietzsche saw it. He didn't look away. He studied it. He embraced it. And then he said, the one thing no one dared to say out loud, not to provoke, but because he knew. Most people don't want the truth. They want something that feels true. So now, you have to ask yourself, what if Nietzsche was right? What if the life you're living, the rules you follow, the values you protect, were never yours to begin with? If you're ready to question everything you thought you knew about morality and freedom, subscribe now. Because what we're about to explore will challenge every comfortable belief you hold. Let's go back to the beginning, to the most dangerous idea in modern philosophy. Let's talk about the death of God. God is dead. It's one of the most misunderstood statements in all of philosophy. Nietzsche wasn't just talking about religion. He wasn't mocking faith or attacking spirituality. He was announcing a seismic shift in human consciousness. What died was certainty. For centuries, God was the cornerstone of meaning. Right and wrong were defined by something higher, something unquestionable. Morality was not just a system. It was sacred, universal, eternal. But Nietzsche saw the cracks forming. Science was rising. Enlightenment thinking was spreading. Faith was retreating into ritual. And he realized something terrifying. If belief in God collapses, so does the entire structure of values built on that belief. Without a divine authority who decides what is good, what is evil, what is worth living for, what is worth dying for. When Nietzsche said God is dead, he was describing a civilization that had unknowingly severed itself from its own foundations. And yet, it kept walking forward, as if nothing had changed. This was not a celebration. It was a warning. Because when the absolute collapses, the void doesn't stay empty. Something always rushes in to fill the space. And today, the pattern is repeating itself, only more disguised. Modern society didn't replace God with nothing. It replaced God with ideologies, with institutions, with identity. Politics became the new religion. Social movements became moral doctrines, and algorithms became digital gods, quietly deciding what you see, what you value, and what you believe. But here's the problem. None of these things can hold the weight of meaning. They shift. They fracture. They contradict themselves. One moment, you are told to speak your truth. The next, you're canceled for saying the wrong thing. We are swimming in a sea of borrowed beliefs, but no one seems to know which ones are real anymore. AI challenges what it means to be human. Technology accelerates faster than our ethics can evolve. And beneath it all is a quiet, growing dread that maybe there are no universal answers. Nietzsche saw it before anyone else. He saw a future where morality would become subjective, where truth would be whatever comforts the herd, where meaning would be outsourced to systems designed not to liberate you, but to pacify you. And this is where it gets personal, because if there is no higher law, then everything falls on you. You are no longer a follower. You are the creator. And that responsibility is overwhelming. So, most people do what they've always done. They look for the next authority to obey, the next belief system to cling to, the next set of rules that tells them they are still good, still right, still safe. But Nietzsche wasn't offering safety. He was offering truth. And truth doesn't comfort. It confronts. So if God is dead, what's left? What rises to fill that void? Nietzsche had an answer. A single word that still makes the world flinch. Slave. Let's talk about it. Nietzsche saw something most people still refuse to see. That morality, what we call virtue, goodness, compassion, was not born from strength. It was born from weakness. He called it slave morality, not because it was evil, but because it was reactive, a value system built not by those who could act, but by those who could only resent. When the powerless could not rise, they declared rising to be wrong. When they could not lead, they claimed leadership was dangerous. And over time, that resentment hardened into rules, into a moral code, into a system we're all expected to follow. Without question, ask yourself, how does the world treat someone who doesn't apologize for who they are? Someone who speaks their truth without softening it. Someone who dares to stand tall without permission. They're called arrogant, selfish, even immoral. But why? Because their very existence is a threat, not to the system, but to everyone still hiding inside it. These insights into the psychology of power and morality will continue throughout this channel. Subscribe to dive deeper into the uncomfortable truths about human nature and society. Nietzsche believed society's dominant morality wasn't designed to elevate people. It was designed to contain them, not to reward strength, but to punish it, not to challenge the herd, but to protect it. And you see this today, in the quiet punishments of cancel culture, in the loud performance of virtue signaling, in how quickly we turn victimhood into a badge of honor. We've turned weakness into moral currency, and anyone who dares to stand above the crowd is accused of being dangerous, not because they're doing harm, but because they remind others that they could rise, too, if they were willing to pay the price. Slave morality uses guilt as a weapon. It teaches you that ambition is wrong, that power is corrupt, that confidence is narcissism. It makes you shrink yourself so others feel comfortable, and little by little, you forget what it means to move freely, to speak honestly, to want more. Nietzsche didn't say we should trample the weak. He said we should stop pretending that weakness is a virtue. Because when a society rewards mediocrity, it punishes greatness by default. Look around. Most people live quietly afraid. Not of failure, but of being seen as too much. So they dim their light. So they fit in. So they disappear. But something inside you remembers. Something inside you knows. You weren't meant to play small. Slave morality doesn't chain your body. It chains your spirit. It trains you to bow before values you never chose. And Nietzsche, he didn't just expose this. He offered an alternative. Not destruction, but transformation. Not rebellion, but creation. He introduced a new kind of human. One who doesn't just reject the rules, but writes his own. Let's talk about him. The one who dares to rise. Part 3. The Übermensch, create. Don't conform. Once Nietzsche dismantled the moral system built to keep us small, he offered an alternative. Not chaos, not anarchy, but evolution. He called it the Übermensch, often mistranslated, frequently misunderstood. The Übermensch is not a tyrant, not a cold-hearted ruler or some Nietzschean monster. It is not about dominating others. It is about overcoming yourself. It is the individual who has stepped beyond inherited values, not to reject all morality, but to create his own. Not to destroy for the sake of destruction, but to rebuild from a deeper foundation. One rooted in self-mastery, not external approval. The Übermensch is not a rebel without direction. He is a creator, a rewriter of the rules. He doesn't ask for permission. He asks for truth, then dares to live it, even if no one understands him, even if the world calls him dangerous, even if he walks alone. Look at history. The people we admire most, the ones who changed the world, were never fully accepted in their own time. Think of innovators like Steve Jobs. He was mocked, ridiculed, even pushed out of his own company. But he had a vision, and he followed it relentlessly. Only later did the world call him a genius. But in the beginning, he was just another heretic. The Übermensch doesn't wait to be understood. He doesn't wait for permission. He doesn't beg the crowd for validation, because he knows the crowd does not lead. It follows, and it fears what it cannot label. Ask yourself, could you live by your own values if no one else believed in them? Could you walk a path that makes sense only to you? Even if it means being judged, isolated, or misunderstood. That is the burden of becoming, because once you stop conforming, you become a mirror, and people don't always like what they see. When you show them it's possible to live without chains, they realize they've chosen to wear theirs. And that realization turns admiration into resentment. But Nietzsche was clear. The path to greatness is not paved with applause. It's carved in solitude. The Übermensch is not about being above others. It's about being beyond them, beyond their fears, beyond their borrowed beliefs, beyond their need to be accepted. He is not controlled by trends, movements, or ideology. He doesn't trade his identity for comfort. He doesn't outsource meaning to the crowd. He carries it within. And here's the key. He is not born that way. He becomes, through tension, through rejection, through the fire of self-confrontation. Because to create yourself, you must first let go of who the world told you to be. And that is not an easy process. But Nietzsche believed it was the only one worth undertaking. Not everyone is ready for it. Most will choose safety. They'll choose the familiar, the expected, the accepted. But for those who hear the call, something different awakens. Not rebellion, not ego, but responsibility. The responsibility to shape your life as if it were a work of art. And you were the artist. But before that, creation can begin. Something else must happen. Something far more difficult. You must let go. You must strip everything false away. You must destroy what you never truly chose. Because Nietzsche knew, before rebirth, there must be ruin. Let's go there. Let's step into the abyss. True freedom is not glamorous. It is not comfortable. And it is not safe. True freedom is terrifying. Because when you are truly free, there is no one left to blame. No gods. No parents. No systems. No rules you can hide behind. Every decision is yours. Every outcome is your responsibility. That is why most people do not want freedom. They want the appearance of freedom. A curated version that looks bold on the outside, but stays well within the limits of what society allows. We live in a golden cage. You can choose your coffee. You can choose your playlists. You can even choose your identity. But the structure of your life, what you think, what you fear, what you chase, was built long before you arrived, and most never question it. They call it freedom, but it is freedom within a script. Simulated freedom. You get to choose the costume, but not the stage. You get to pick your role, but not the story. And as long as you don't deviate too far, as long as you smile, comply, stay productive, no one will stop you. But step too far outside that boundary. Question too much. I want too much. Refuse to play your part. And the illusion shatters. Suddenly, your freedom becomes a threat. And the world shows you how conditional it really was. Nietzsche understood this perfectly. He knew that when people are handed real freedom, unfiltered, unbound, they do not celebrate. They panic, Because freedom means uncertainty. It means isolation. It means carrying the full weight of your choices, with no safety net to catch you. And most would rather live in a predictable cage than face that abyss. This is the cost of becoming. You forfeit the right to blame and inherit the burden to build. No more excuses. No more pointing fingers. No more stories about why you couldn't. You could. You didn't. That's on you. And that level of self-responsibility is rare. Not because it's impossible, but because it's unbearable for most. So instead, people choose comfort. They choose repetition. They follow norms, not because they believe in them, but because the alternative is too heavy. They'd rather be a purposeful slave than a free human with no map. And society reinforces this. It rewards conformity. It rewards predictability. It rewards those who fit in, not those who wake up. Look around. Most people live the same year, over and over again. Same routines, same jobs, same conversations, same justifications. And yet they call it freedom because they can pick which show to binge at night. But Nietzsche saw through the illusion. He knew that real freedom begins when you are no longer afraid of being wrong, when you are no longer paralyzed by judgment, when you take off the mask, step off the stage, and start writing your own script. No matter how unfinished, no matter how uncertain. But the moment you do that, the moment you break out of the golden cage, something else happens. The world doesn't cheer for you. It turns against you. Let's talk about why. There is a hidden cost to thinking for yourself. It is not failure. It is not struggle. It is rejection. When you step outside the script, when you live by your own values, you don't just stand alone. You become a threat, a living contradiction to the crowd, and they will hate you for it. Not because you are wrong, not because you have harmed anyone, but because you have dared to do what they won't. You've chosen to think, to act, to exist without apology, in a world addicted to validation. That is unforgivable. Nietzsche understood this deeply. He saw that the free individual, the one who refuses to conform, is always labeled as dangerous, not because he's cruel, but because he's free. And freedom exposes the lie. It reminds people that the chains they wear were never locked. They were chosen. And nothing is more unsettling than being reminded that you could have walked away at any time. So instead of facing that truth, the crowd turns against the one who broke free. They don't call him brave. They call him arrogant. They call him dangerous. Not because he is, but because he shows them what they are not. In today's world, this pattern is everywhere. Someone questions a dominant narrative. They're smeared. Someone speaks a difficult truth. They're silenced. Someone steps outside the moral consensus. They're canceled. And often, they are punished, not for what they've done, but for what they represent: individuality, clarity, courage. We live in a time where compliance is mistaken for goodness, and silence is sold as virtue. So when someone refuses to stay silent, refuses to shrink, refuses to trade authenticity for acceptance, they become a mirror. And people don't always like what they see. Crowds are not inherently evil, but they are inherently afraid. Afraid of difference. Afraid of truth without filters. Afraid of those who remind them of their own compromises. And that is why the one who thinks for himself is almost always misunderstood. Because he doesn't speak for comfort. He speaks from conviction. And conviction, in a world built on consensus, feels like violence. But here's the paradox. The freer you become, the more dangerous you appear. Even if all you're doing is living with your eyes open, you will be called extreme by those addicted to moderation, selfish by those who never chose themselves, immoral by those who confuse obedience with virtue. But make no mistake, they don't hate you. They hate what your existence demands from them. And that is the cost of becoming. You will lose the comfort of being liked. You will lose the illusion of belonging. You will lose the ease of fitting in. But what you gain is yourself. And once you taste that, you will never go back. So, the question is no longer, was Nietzsche right? The question is, are you willing to live as if he was? Because if he was, the rules you were taught were never made to help you grow. They were made to keep you safe, small, and silent. So what happens if you stop playing by them? If these ideas are stirring something deep within you, if you're ready to question the foundations of everything you've been taught, then this channel is your laboratory for truth. Subscribe, because the journey we're on together has only just begun. He who does not dare to break his chains deserves to wear them. You've made it this far. Not because this was easy to hear, but because something in you recognized the truth. So don't just watch. Act. Choose one belief, one idea you've always accepted without question, and ask yourself, is this mine or was it given to me? That single question has the power to break an entire system within you. Because real transformation doesn't start with motivation. It starts with doubt. The right kind of doubt. The kind that frees you. Leave a comment below with that belief. The one you're ready to challenge. The one you're ready to let go. And if this resonated with you, subscribe. But understand something. This is not a channel for comfort. This is a channel for truth. Even when it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Because if you are seeking the truth, not the pretty version, but the real one, then you already know the path forward does not come with permission. It begins with a decision.